what's happening here at home. Some top Republicans are dismissing the allegations that Donald Trump directed his former fixer Michael Cohen to make illegal hush money payments to two women during the 2016 campaign. When asked if he had any concerns, Senator Orrin Hatch told CNN the Democrats will do anything to hurt this president. When he was told the allegations came from the Southern District of New York, Hatch said, "Okay, but I don't care. All I can say is he's doing a good job as president." Hatch was asked whether he was concerned about the allegations, and he said, "No, because I don't think he was involved in crimes. But even then, you know, you can make anything a crime under the current..." Oh, my. He's turning into Trump. Honestly, these people are turning into Trump. If you want to, you can blow it way out of proportion. You can do a lot of things. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy told NBC News, "Let me say this about Mr. Cohen. Jesus loves him, but everyone else thinks he's an idiot. I think most Americans think he's a sleazoid grifter. I can't imagine basing any kind of prosecution on the word of Mr. Cohen." Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley also dismissed the allegations, telling CNN they based it on what a liar says. So it hurts the credibility of it. That liar was employed as a close fixer for the president for more than a decade, but okay. And here's how House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy responded to Congressman Adam Schiff's assertion that Donald Trump could face the real prospect of jail time for his role in directing Michael Cohen to make illegal payoffs during the presidential campaign.
The president hires an attorney to solve a problem. He expects him to do it in a legal manner. I don't see, and if Schiff is taking this beyond to go forward and say there's a impeachable offense because of a campaign finance problem, there's a lot of members in Congress who would have to leave for that same place.
Willie Geist, it's incredible. To me, this is despicable.
Well, and also what they're arguing against is information and findings and allegations coming from prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, not from Democrats, not from the media. This is a case put together by prosecutors, Noah Rothman. And if you go back through history, you look at comments, for example, from Orrin Hatch during impeachment in 1999. He worried about moral turpitude and obstruction of justice and these things being disqualifying for being in office. So to see him now, less than 2 decades later, coming out and saying, you know what, maybe, but he's a good guy, he's doing a good job, I don't buy Michael Cohen as a witness. It's a completely different standard he's using from one president to the last.
It is, and I've actually, I kind of find the the reaction among Republicans and Republican pundits to be a little unsatisfying. The notion that Democrats will have to embrace some disqualifying amount of hypocrisy in order to argue that at the fundamental level this is about sex, paying off a paramour, and they can't do that having defended Bill Clinton on those same terms. I find that unconvincing, not just because embracing hypocrisy is no obstacle for a political actor, but because these are difference in kind, and also because the president's legal team are not arguing Bill Clinton, they're arguing John Edwards. They're saying this is not prosecutable because of this precedent, because John Edwards was acquitted on one charge, mistrial on 5 others, nobody wanted to prosecute again. There are distinctions as the nature of this case. Donald Trump's case might be a little more prosecutable because it happened so much earlier in the campaign, but all that aside, they're arguing now that these allegations, which destroyed John Edwards, which ruined his career, rendered him politically toxic, are the model that they are following. That seems like a very bad bet.
But what's interesting is that there's a case that's going to be laid out by the Southern District. The Democrats don't have to jump the gun on this because that case is going to be there. The Republicans are foolish for coming out so far ahead of this. It makes me wonder what the president has promised them in exchange, because there's no other way to explain this kind of behavior. But on top of that, this is just one case that evolved from the investigation. Mueller still has to provide his full report. And I think that it would be wise for the Democrats, as well as the Republicans, to keep their powder dry until they have facts in front of them. It would just seem the logical course.
All right, and some more from House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Speaking yesterday, he said that his Democratic colleagues should not make investigating President Trump a top priority when they retake the House majority next month.
I think America is too great of a nation to have such a small agenda. I think there's other problems out there that we really should be focused upon. We've investigated this for a long period of time. Both sides have come up with nothing in the process.
If by nothing in the process means indictments or guilty pleas from 33 people and 3 companies so far, then he's right. As for his argument that Democrats should not make investigating the president a top priority, you'll recall that in 2014, McCarthy and other House Republicans set up a special committee dedicated to investigating the 2012 attacks in Benghazi, and in an interview the following year, McCarthy celebrated the committee putting a dent in Hillary Clinton's poll numbers. Remember this?
Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was unbeatable, right? But we put together a Benghazi special committee, a select committee. What are her numbers today? Her numbers are dropping. Why? Because she's untrustable.
It's painful. The Republican Party screams that it must stand for the rule of law at the border, tear-gassing desperate families, but they're not sure. They're just not sure if they want to do the same at the White House. Doesn't apply. The Trump Justice Department has shown candidate Trump led a conspiracy to commit a campaign finance felony by illegally directing the paying off of 2 alleged mistresses for their silence to help him win the election. The Republican reaction has been disgraceful. The top Republican in the House, Kevin McCarthy, shamefully, pathetically says the law shouldn't be enforced. What a suck-up. GOP Senators Hatch, Grassley, and Kennedy have become Trump. This week, they've tried to divert attention from Trump to Michael Cohen, who Trump hired for decades, and ignoring the Justice Department and scoffing at the rule of law, what makes this country work. The same Republican Party that demands that the full extent of the law be brought down on 2-year-old babies ripped from their mother's arms at the Mexican border believes we should ignore the apparently illegal actions of a billionaire who won the White House quite possibly by committing felonious acts in the final weeks of the campaign. And fantastic. In America, no man is above the law, and they know that. But don't tell that to these Republicans who continue to defend a politician who is trashing the rule of law, destroying their party and this country in the process. To me, I say, good luck with that. Mike Barnicle.
Well, Mika, you know, I mean, the level of hypocrisy here is not surprising. It's fairly predictable. Kevin McCarthy's comments that we just played in context are ridiculous. And I'm sure that somewhere within them, within Kevin McCarthy, within Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, within Senator Grassley, they've got to know that what occurred last week with regard to Michael Cohen, the allegations about campaign finance law violations, those are just appetizers given us by the special prosecutor and the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney here. Appetizers, because the context of what is about to come clearly is within all of the redactions in what we saw last week. And there's a lot to come. And the key here is, and we have to remind ourselves here at this table and other tables like this in this country, we know nothing about what Robert Mueller has and what he can unload at any moment in time. The frustrating thing about all of this, about all of the rhetoric that we just heard, is that it feeds into the narrative of what we're about to hear from Richard Haas at some point about what's going on in the world. America as a leader is now stage left or stage right, depending on your political point of view. We are not playing a part in what we should and have always played a part in. 70 years ago was the advent of the Berlin airlift, led by who? The United States of America. And that is a distant dream. This country's role in the world is now lost in the fog of the past.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.